Visions of the Black Heaven, Chapter 7. They traveled and talked and laughed for several hours. Then Melody gave Duke a look that suggested that they need to stop. Driving by an old billboard advertising Mary Ellen's truck stop and cafe, Duke had a smile in his voice. Everyone knows the truck stops are the best places to stop. If my drivers like them, they got to be good. My drivers are the pickiest people I know. He parked in the gravel lot and walked around, opening Melody's door. Mary Ellen's was a small but clean place with 3 tables down the center and 4 booths on each side of the dining room. The tables were covered in a white and red checkered tablecloth. The 8 booths had seats covered with leather of different colors of the 1970s: orange, green, yellow, and brown. Autographed photos of various artists and some famous and some not so famous artists who had visited the cafe hung on the walls. Mary Ellen's must have been proud of some. There was Elvis, Don Williams, Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner, Red Sovine, the Oak Ridge Boys in Alabama. Other famous artists who sang at the Grand Ole Opry hung on the top row of the wall. In another part of the restaurant was a horseshoe counter where the drivers sat drinking coffee, eating, talking about the day's events. Mary Ellen, a tall, slender blonde, dressed in casual slacks and a smock, always met her customers at the door. She looked ready to take orders, cook, wash dishes, or meet anyone at the cash register. Deep laugh lines on her face showed a warm personality, and everyone at the truck stop enjoyed her southern accent. Her hair was tied up in a bun. She had a big smile. She greeted her new customers as she was cleaning the table. Howdy, folks. Special of the day is home-cooked chicken fried steak. Have a seat anywhere. Choosing a seat with a window view, they ordered coffee and chicken fried steak dinners. The truck stop was half full of customers, and a few drivers seated at the horseshoe counter enjoyed their favorite coffee and dinner. In the front corner of the dining room, nearest the corner, was an old man sitting by himself, drinking his coffee. Looking out the window, there was a delicious aroma of home-cooked food, fresh homemade rolls and muffins, roast beef, turkey dinners, and chicken fried steak. Melody looked around, impressed with how Mary Ellen kept such a clean place. Their food arrived. They sat in silence, enjoying each other's presence. An old junk pickup truck pulled in front of the truck stop. After they ate, Melody went to the convenience store to get a souvenir as he waited to pay the bill. It was time for the drivers to leave, and everyone was standing at the cash register. Duke was the second to the last in line. Watching Melody, he was amazed that a woman of such beauty was interested in a lug like him. And to think the connections they shared was amazing. He had planned ahead and had the exact change and tip ready to pay in his hand. He heard some woman behind him say, "Hurry up! I'm in a hurry!" Then he felt someone punch him in the ribs. Looking behind him, he saw a tall, thin woman with shoulder-length, greasy, bleached blonde hair. She was dressed in a baggy shorts that exposed her long, skinny, underdeveloped legs. Her filthy feet were covered by wore-out, open-toed silver stiletto sandals. What she was wearing made her look like a Vegas showgirl reject. She had too much makeup on, so Duke could not tell her age. She looked like a gal who'd been rode hard and put away wet. She stood behind him with an obvious look of irritation. "I'm in a hurry," she repeated. "Hurry up!" Duke looked at her, not believing what he had just heard. Ignoring her, he continued to wait for Mary Ellen. She punched him again, barking, "Hurry up! I'm in a hurry!" Duke turned around saying, "You're talking to the wrong person. Talk to the cashier." He was getting irritated with this rude woman. She snapped again, "Hurry up! I'm in a hurry!" and punched him again. Duke looked at her and said, "Lady, leave me alone." He knew how things can get out of hand and out of control in an argument between a man and a woman. The man never has a chance. Towering over her at a height of 6'7", with arms the size of logs. He looked around for Melody, slumping his shoulders forward, pushing his hat back on the top of his head. He gave the impression of a desperate man with a help-me look. He raised one arm above his head and shouted, "Hey, baby! Hey, baby! Melody! This woman's picking on me!" Melody was at the back of the store looking at a collection of coffee cups, spoons, cedar boxes, postcards, and other interesting things when she heard his voice. Looking up, her eyes widened and her mouth fell open when she saw a woman standing behind Duke, punching him in the ribs. She lowered her head, squinted her eyes. Her lips tightened into a thin line. She walked towards the woman in slow, strong, solid steps. Her fingers and hands clenched into fists. The bleached blonde looked up and saw Melody walking towards her. By now, everyone in the truck stop had heard Duke's booming voice. He knew what was going on. All the noise natural to every truck stop, conversations, spoons clicking on cups, plates being washed, kitchen preparations came to a hush. Everyone saw Melody walking towards the cashier's desk, a look of determination on her face with her clenched fists. She did not look happy. In an almost inaudible whisper, everyone heard, "Who's picking on my man?" Mary Ellen saw what was about to happen. Some trucker hollered, "Yeehaw, cat fight!" Mary Ellen ran to the cashier's counter. Duke saw Melody's facial expression, an expression of controlled anger and determination, the same expression Caleb had when things were horribly bad. He knew she was mad. He started to walk towards her, holding his hands up. Baby, calm down. There was no harm done here. Now, calm down." The leggy, bleached blonde saw Melody's eyes as she was walking towards her. She looked at Duke, then looked at Melody, then back at Duke. She threw the cashier the meal ticket and $20 bill, saying, "Keep the change," then ran out the door. Melody arrived at the cashier's counter. Relieved the leggy blonde had left, she touched his cheek to make sure he was all right. Taking the bill and money from his hand, she firmly placed the meal ticket and money down on the cashier's counter. She took a hold of Duke's collar, pulling his head down to her eye level, and walked him out the door. Everyone started to laugh as Duke looked back at the truck drivers with a smile on his face. He winked, saying, "Yes, dear. Yes, dear." The leggy blonde was standing at the driver's side door of the junk pickup. Her head was inside of the window, screaming, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" She pointed to Melody. "That woman there almost killed me and stole my money. Yeah, that woman there almost killed me and stole my money." The driver, Willard, was a skinny man who looked like he had not bathed for well over a week. He had a scruffy beard, long, stringy, greasy hair, filthy, dirty clothes that didn't fit, and saw Melody walking out the cafe pulling a man behind her. He decided he was going to get his money back. Everyone in the cafe knew what was going to happen. Willard was a hillbilly through and through. He'd stand up to a grizzly bear if he had to, and would to defend the honor of his wife. That's just the way things were done around here. Grabbing his knife from the front seat of the pickup, Wilbur told himself, "I'm a hunter. I'm a fighter. And I'm real good with a knife." He went back to the entrance of the truck stop to meet Melody and the man she was pulling behind her. Wilbur flashed his rusty knife, then saying, "I want my wife's money back." Melody was still holding Duke's collar, walking out the door. She saw a scruffy-looking guy holding the knife standing in front of them. "I want my wife's money back." Duke looked at him, said, "Partner, put that thing away before you hurt yourself." Wilbur stood his ground and repeated, "I want my wife's money back." Duke snickered at him. This made the scruffy hillbilly madder than before. Mary Ellen looked out the window to see Wilbur holding a knife on her customer. She'd noticed Duke's Jeep, the military emblems, the pilot wings, the Purple Heart, the Ranger insignia, and other medals, decals. She did not know what they meant. Mary Ellen thought that this man must have had a high rank in the military, a man that no one should reckon with, and there was Fool Wilbur standing. Duke snickered at him. This made the scruffy hillbilly madder than before. Mary Ellen looked out the window to see Wilbur holding the knife on her customer. She noticed Duke's Jeep, the military emblems, the pilot wings, the Purple Heart, the Ranger insignia, and other medals, decals that she did not know what they meant. Mary Ellen thought that this man must have had a high rank in the military, a man that no one should reckon with, and there was Fool Wilbur standing nose to nose with this giant of a man. Slowly, Duke stood straight up, stepped in front of Melody to protect her. She watched Duke take the same stance he had with a drugstore cowboy. He stood with his arms at his side, relaxed, ready to strike at any second. The scruffy hillbilly shouted, "Give me my wife's money back, or else!" Duke snapped. "It's in there." His head pointed towards the truck stop. "At the register. Get it yourself." Melody watched the scruffy hillbilly lunge forward to strike. Duke stepped aside, caught his arm, twisting it. The knife dropped to the ground, and Duke pushed him aside, then slapped the back of his head, sending the scruffy hillbilly stumbling into a row of empty wicker chairs in front of the store. Wilbur heard the laughter of the men in the truck stop looking at the window. As he landed on his back, arms and legs tangled in the chairs, lying flat on the ground. Mary Ellen came running outside, seeing Wilbur on the ground. She shouted, "Wilbur, what trouble are you getting into now?" Picking himself up out of the chairs, he said, "Nothin', ma'am." Duke and Melody got in the Rubicon to leave. Duke and Wilbur exchanged looks that said, "This ain't over with yet, boy." Duke winked at Wilbur and blew him a kiss as he drove away. Charlie, the old man sitting in the corner of the truck stop cafe, an old World War II vet, laughed out loud, saying, "Did you see that? I was that good when I was his age, maybe even better. That lumberjack of a man took old Wilbur and tore him up." The truckers and Charlie sat pointing and laughing at Wilbur. Charlie started one of his World War II stories. "I remember when we were..." But no one was listening. They were watching to see what that man called Duke was going to do next. Charlie stopped talking and watched Duke and that woman get into his Rubicon. Charlie, seeing the military emblems on the windshield and bumper, thought to himself, "I've seen that boy somewhere before. I know that face, that walk, that smile. But where? Who is he and why is he here?" Mary Ellen knew there was going to be trouble. She watched the Schroeder boys grow up. They were hillbillies in the truest way. They did not forget, and worst, they did not forgive. And this was their country. That military man will have his hands full if he does not leave these mountains, and soon. Saw him wink at Wilbur and blew him a kiss. Mary Ellen watched Duke back out of the parking spot and saw him wink at Wilbur and blow him a kiss. She knew exactly what Wilbur was thinking. Charlie remembered. Wayne is his name, and he is the grandson of that crazy old mountain man. Charlie chuckled. "Ha! Wayne grew up in these mountains also. He knows these hills and the people who live in them like he knows his own backyard. He ain't no city boy. He's a backwoods man. His grandpa, that crazy old mountain man, had taught him how to live off the land and survive in the worst times any man could imagine. The military taught him discipline and character and how to fight." Charlie wondered how many brothers and friends Wilbur was going to rustle up to get their vengeance against Duke. Charlie smiled. The Schroeders had their hands full with this mountain man. A short time later, the state trooper assigned to the area came into Mary Ellen's for a cup of coffee. A Native American with coal-black hair, who despite his large size walked lightly on his feet. He had grown up in the mountains of this area also. As Captain Williams joined Charlie, he started talking about the excitement between the strangers and Wilbur. Captain Williams listened with interest, watching Mary Ellen pour in a cup of coffee, remembering the details, but not saying anything.